So hi, it's Joe from Let's Talk Porsche at Porsche Centre South Lakes. I'm joined with Christian. Christian has flown over from Germany, from Manthey Racing. So could you just give a little introduction as to Manthey Racing, what you do for them, please?
Of course. My name is Christian, originally born in Sweden, living in Germany now for 20 years and been working for Manthey for the last 12 years. And Manthey, of course, started in 1996 as a pure racing team, focusing heavily on motorsport, and have racked up, of course, a lot of success over all the years with Le Mans wins, 24-hour Nürburgring, 24-hour Spa, World Championship Sports Car, World Championship titles, driver, team, whatever. Very early on in the company's history though, because the customer came to Olaf Manthey, which is where the name comes from. And then they asked, I have a road car and you seem to be able to, you have the secret, the secret to make a car faster, can you help me? And that sort of grew into a side business, and out of that side business today we have established a company that in the last 10 years have gone from 30, 40 to almost 350 employees. And 10 years ago, well, a little bit more than 10 years ago, Porsche acquired a 51% stake. And since 2021, so we're in our fourth or fifth year now, where we do develop these performance-related products for Porsche AG, and the parts are being sold for the GT models as aftermarket and equipment parts, which means that basically the whole world via the Porsche dealer network is at the disposal, and the customer can locally get the same parts that he 10 years ago had to travel to the Nürburgring to get, because we're located a stone's throw from the famous Nürburgring Nordschleife.
Cool. So Manthey perfecting already a great product that Porsche produce, perfecting it for track performance, increasing the performance for customers now as well, not just for the racing teams. So what sort of packages can customers buy then day to day to enhance, say, a 992 GT3?
Well, when we talk about enhance and improve, it sounds almost a little bit of arrogant, and that is basically what Olaf said from the beginning. You cannot possibly improve a Porsche, but you can optimize it for a specific usage. And if that usage, it's, let's say, spirited driving, track driving, taking part in track days, driving courses on racetracks all over the world, then of course you can find potential in the cars. We couldn't do what we do if we hadn't the brilliant base material to start with, because if you take like a 992 GT3 that we have behind us, or a GT4 RS, and all these cars are absolutely brilliant and class leading within their segment. But for the customers that want to take it one step extra and have the focus slightly shifted more towards, let's say, track driving, that's where we come into play, and that is the target customer that we develop the kits for. And that has been a formula of success now since, well, officially, we're in our fifth year, yeah.
And that's the thing with these cars, these are superb at doing absolutely everything out the box, but I suppose if a customer really wants to perfect it for what you can offer, it's that last 5-10% of performance.
Yeah, and the thing is that it's not that the car becomes undrivable for the street, because then I think that the market for products like that would of course be minuscule. Yeah, so it's important that the car still is usable if you want as a daily driver, so you can still do the same things that you did before, but you always have a focus on sportiness. And of course, that's also part of the reason when Porsche acquired the company. Now we do it officially, so all the parts have Porsche part numbers. That's why they can be sold via Porsche equipment in the first place. And that means that it doesn't affect warranty on the car. And if you want, you can keep it up to 15 years under the Porsche approved warranty system. And that of course lends or adds another dimension to the whole thing, that yes, I want to individualize my car. I want to make it, to personalize it, and I use it more on track day driving. And for those people, we develop the parts. But then we notice that a lot of people, they like the idea of individualization. So I think that, well, if I add a kit to my car, I have something that my friend doesn't. But that's, of course, not the main focus that we have when we do the development of the kits. And during the development phase, we also take into account what is possible to do to keep the road legality, what, let's say, the whole catalog of requirements from Porsche, with all the tests that we have to do, which are very similar to many of what the road car, the normal Porsche standard car goes through, so we can ensure that the parts have the same quality.
So a big part of the kit seems to be the aerodynamics, but that's something that Porsche, especially in the last couple of years, has put a lot of emphasis on themselves. How did Manthey improve upon what Porsche already offer out the box then? Do they have access to wind tunnel testing?
Yeah, and nowadays that is a minimum requirement to really be able to analyze a car and to find optimization potential. So what we do after the concept phase is that when we have our basic setup and layout of what the kit could look like and what it could contain, we do a lot of CFD simulation. And based on the last iteration of the CFD simulation, we go into prototyping, and then we manufacture parts. And then we go to the wind tunnel. We have the big privilege, and we're very thankful for that, of course, that we can use a Porsche wind tunnel. And then we see if the correlation is where it should be. So what the simulation figure said, is it actually what is shown in the wind tunnel? And if it isn't, then of course it's back to the drawing board or back to the simulation board in that way. And if it is, then we can go ahead with the R&D phase, where we also then drive with the prototype parts. And then we get another validation of the numbers. So we saw them in the simulation, we saw them in the wind tunnel, and if we also feel them when we drive the car on the track and we can measure them, then of course we're on the right track.
Yeah, a lot of it seems to be increasing that confidence the driver has in the vehicle, and that in itself will allow them to go quicker.
Yeah. We have let's say the holy trinity. We always start with the concept of drivability and what is to be understood behind the concept of drivability. If you are on track and that is your focus at that stage, when you're entering that corner at high speed and you're focusing on the curb or whatever, you need a car that is of course behaving as easily predictable as possible. So you need a car that you can trust, you understand the language of the car, the signals that you get from the car, you know what the car is going to do next. That is increasing drivability, and with that you get a bigger confidence behind the wheel, and with confidence the performance comes. Because if you do a car too twitchy, too nervous, too extreme, then we have people like well-paid works drivers that live off making stuff happen that we normal people cannot do. And that would be the wrong approach, because then the customer couldn't benefit from it. But starting with drivability, leading to confidence, which then leads to performance at the end of the day. And you could even throw in safety, because if you have more confidence and the car is more predictable, then at the same speed, you're at least traveling also in a safer way on the racetrack.
So speaking of safety, you also offer something that helps the car decelerate quicker or better.
The main areas of these cars where we look at, it's suspension, it's aerodynamics, and it's brakes. And then of course in terms of putting the kit together, we have some individual accessories as well, but the technical sectors are threefold in that sense, and then it's all about also choosing the right products and getting everything in a balance to make them work in harmony.
So this particular car, we've got a 992 GT3 in Ruby Star Neo, which is a really quite loud and interesting colour. If you could just highlight, Christian, some of the Manthey performance parts that are installed on this particular vehicle, please.
Sure, I'd love to. If we start at the front, we have added a bigger front splitter. It's basically 40 millimeters, sticks out longer than the standard splitter, and this is of course to divide the airflow as early as possible. If it would be technically and let's say road legally required, it's not a bad idea to start with a splitter here, but then that leads to different problems than when we get in the rear. So we try to change the airflow in the front. We also use the classic racing trick of using canards. These are of course very helpful to a certain extent. What they do though is that they increase the drag or the coefficient of the car. And for homologation reasons, this car has to be drag neutral in comparison to the standard car. So the challenge is to increase downforce but not increase drag. And when we add parts like this, we have to find other sectors of the car where we then reduce drag to remain at the constant level. So the front basically consists of the front splitter and the canards. Underneath, behind the front wheel well, we also have additional air guide elements. And then we top it off at the end of the car or at the rear of the car.
Yeah, so just touching those, for people that don't know, when we get these cars in, we put them on a ramp. They're pretty flat bottomed underneath, and they have some air sort of ducts out the factory, so you add additional ducting.
Exactly.
Channel
Additional
that
air guide elements that help us deflect the airflow and control the airflow. And then of course everything on a car, let's say if you look at a race car, you want the diffuser to work as efficiently as possible. So with these measurements that we start at the front, we end up with the desired effect in the rear. With a different diffuser, it's bigger, it has longer fins, a different shape, and then of course we also have the possibility to add exterior parts, and that's where we have taken or developed a brand new wing blade with specifically designed end plates, and everything is about to control the airflow and to increase the downforce, but again without increasing the drag coefficient. And then of course as the last aerodynamic feature, we also have the so-called aero discs on the rear wheels. A lot of people ask us, but why don't you put them on the front wheels? Well, if I were an aerodynamicist, I would say that of course I would like to, because I would like to cover that area. But it's easy to understand, because when you cover the wheel, then of course you also prevent the airflow of hot air. So when you're on a racetrack and the brakes gets too hot, it's difficult to ventilate the wheel wells. So in practice, on track driving, it only works in the rear. And what the discs actually do is that they take away a lot of turbulence that come from the spokes of the wheel when they are rotating. So we can again control the airflow around the car in a better way. And what happens is that we separate the airflow so the diffuser can work more efficiently, and the wing can be then basically the airflow that enters the wing or reaches the wing is not as disturbed as it would have been without the aero discs.
And they're almost a staple piece of a Manthey car now, seeing that aero disc on the back wheel.
They have become sort of a sign of recognition, and they work very well, and we are keeping the development of them. And with the 992 RS kit now being launched, we have the second generation aero discs. So there's still much more to learn and much more to use from the airflow around the car. But of course, the increased downforce, because if you look at total numbers, we're approximately 50-60% of what the original car can do, and that of course then also changes the requirements that we have on the suspension kit. So that's one reason why we cannot offer the aero part separately. We need to combine it with a finely tuned suspension that is adapted to the higher aero loads.
Yeah, so things we can't see, so this has got the coilover suspension front and rear. Yeah. So that has, I believe, high and low speed rebound and compression dampening.
Yeah, four-way dampers, and a lot of people then ask, yeah, but wait a minute, this is some highly technological, mumbo jumbo used in racing. I'm not a race engineer. I don't know how to do that. Well, the good thing is that we do that for them. We need the adjustability to find the equilibrium and the optimum performance that we want to find. And when we have that, then that's our setting. And that's a factory setting, that's how the dampers are installed. And our recommendation is to do the installation and just drive. However, depending on your individual requirements, then it might be that you actually have some usage for a different setting, and then you have the possibility to do that. And what we did with the 992 GT3 is that we actually also, because of course the kit was also intended to go on the touring, because the kit is also available for the touring, but then of course without the rear wing, obviously. For that we have we have tested a road setting, which means that you change the compression and rebound values, high speed and low speed, you soften it up a little bit, and as an effect you get actually a very pleasant ride comfort as a bonus, sort of a side effect of what the technology of the dampers can deliver.
And then these particular wheels, there's a lot of milling that's gone on this wheel, or a lot of the metal that seems to be missing within the spoke.
Yeah, I mean, the easiest way to make something lighter is of course to take something away. And when you do a wheel, then you of course only have the option to take away material. And we have tried to start with as stiff as construction as possible, because it's all about durability. And if you think about the part like this should have a life length of, basically the life length of the car. That would be in perfect circumstances the case. And for that we need to of course meet certain requirements. So these wheels have to go through almost the same testing procedure as any Porsche standard wheel, with European norms, with worldwide norms and Porsche internal norms. So that is basically setting the framework within which we can move. And then of course within that framework we try to reach the lowest possible weight. And yes, by adding a lot of holes and taking away a lot of material, we do achieve a quite substantial weight reduction.
I love the look of that wheel. It's almost skeletal. Yeah, like a natural product really. It looks really cool.
It's very technical, and if you look at it, especially in this color where you see all the details, so some customers say that, you know, they look so good that I gotta have them. But of course they are happy about the technical benefits as well, yeah.
So we'll have a quick look at the 4 RS, yes. Manthey Racing we've got behind. So
again, it's basically the same concept where we try to do something with the aero. The standard car, of course, has the blade formation here. Yeah. We chose to remove that and replace it with flicks. Again, we have an underbody that also changes the airflow. It makes it easier to control the air. We have the air guide elements underneath on the underbody. We have the aero discs again. On this car, it's technically difficult to do something with the diffuser due to the exhaust configuration. So we focused on the design of the rear wing. And again, we also combine this with the 4-way coilover suspension. And then, of course, what both cars have in common is, of course, also the brake system that we upgrade via the braided brake lines to have a more constant pedal feeling on the racetrack. We combine it with the racing brake fluid, and then, of course, brake pads with bigger heat resistance, which means that on the first lap you have a certain feeling in the pedal, on the 10th lap you have a certain feeling, and on the 50th lap you should have the same feeling still in the pedal. And that gives, of course, the driver confidence and enables quick lap times at the end of the day. So basically the same concept, and then of course this one has some, I would say, parts that they're not styling, because the motto of Olaf, or motto, but he once said, we will never add anything to the car that doesn't make it quicker. So when we looked into the possibility of adding some carbon parts, they also had to have a function, and they also actually increase the downforce, not so substantially much as, of course, the huge rear wing, but they do have a function, and as a side effect, they look brilliant.
Yeah, this customer I know was really keen on the louvered front arches in the Carbon 5, which come as part of the kit, because this being a Weissach car, it already had the carbon ducts and panelling on the side, so that was a nice touch that tied it in. So thank you very much, Christian. We actually filmed this video at our Manthey evening event, so we have several cars in the showroom, GT product cars, some with the kit, some without, so it gives customers a really good taste for what's on offer through the Manthey parts catalogue, which can be seen through equipment, so it's available through our Porsche parts department. You'll be doing a talk shortly, I believe.
Exactly, I will have a speech or a presentation where we go into a little bit of the history of Manthey and also the development process of these products, because this is, of course, the finished product, and even if it's cool, it's even cooler when you get to hear the full background story of how they come to be and why they look like they look. And we'll start with that in, I think, rather shortly. And I'm enjoying being here, and I'm very thankful that we get the opportunity to get outside of our little bubble at the Nürburgring and see what's going on out there in the real world. So thank you for the opportunity of having me.
Thank you for your time. Look forward to it. If anyone has any inquiries regarding the Manthey Performance equipment, please contact our parts department or the sales executive here at the centre.